but I ate that in the US. Is that not okay? And I was like, what? Is almost borderline excessive now. Hello and welcome to A Wanderlust for Life. I'm Jessica and I'm an American who's lived in Amsterdam since 2014, and this video is part of the Expat Life series. So today I'm going to talk about American things that I now just think are bizarre after living here for so long. Some might be predictable, others might not, but this is just to give anybody who's thinking about moving to the Netherlands an idea of like the differences and maybe how it'll affect you. Number one is health insurance. I always hear Americans talk about European healthcare and how it's this most amazing thing, and for the most part, I agree, but I also want to dispel the myth that all of Europe has the same kind of healthcare. It's very different from the UK to Bulgaria to the Netherlands to France. You get the point. But here, you do pay for insurance, but everybody has to have insurance, and if you can't afford it, there are ways to help you get it. So that's not a problem. You don't pay to go to the general practitioner. You can choose different tiers of insurance care. Your max per year is a couple hundred, not thousands upon thousands. You're not gonna go bankrupt from having a baby, or if you have, God forbid, a terminal illness or anything like that. Basically, we still pay a couple hundred a month for insurance, but the out-of-pocket expenses are so negligible that you're really not scared of going to the doctor or scared of getting a diagnosis as far as monetarily. And in the US, I had pretty good insurance. I worked for the state, and despite paying probably the same amount in a premium, I was paying a lot more out of pocket for just like things that everybody has to do, which was very, very frustrating. So yeah, healthcare here makes me really wonder why it can't be different in the US. I know that there's lots of reasons, and I'm sure some of you will comment below. And I'm sure any Dutch watching this are gonna be like, no, ours isn't very good, but it's a lot better that way than in the US. I do hear complaints here about how the general practitioner won't like refer you unless it's absolutely necessary. And you have to fight for your rights a little bit more here. Not for your rights, but to like move on to the next step if you think something's wrong, but they're not really understanding about it. But I haven't really had a problem. I've had a couple things that I've talked to my doctor about, and it's never been an issue. So I just feel like if you're pretty straightforward about it all, you can get help. You just have to get used to a different system. They're not going to hand out pills like they do in the US. Okay, taxes is one of those things that I'll never quite understand the American view on taxes. So here, yeah, it's pretty high, but depending on who you are in the US, you might be paying about the same percentage and you just don't get as much. So here, when you pay for taxes, you expect a certain level of livability, and that is definitely true for the most part. And I guess, you know, just the idea of making sure that taxes go to making sure everybody's okay is, yeah, it's like a really good feeling. I get why people in the US are very anti-taxes. They don't want to pay for other people's blah, 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 insert issue here. But ultimately, it's what's good for the whole of society. And so like, that's just something I don't get anymore. Like, why wouldn't you pay a little bit more when you know that you're gonna get all this stuff? I think it might have to do with the trusting of the government, but if you have any comments about that, I'm sure you'll leave them down below anyway. But I invite you to, because I know it's a nuanced topic as far as who pays how much and stuff like that. But also, generally speaking, to do your taxes here is a lot easier. There's not like this loophole and that loophole. I'm sure there's some, but it's pretty straightforward, which is really, really nice. So you're not like confused tax time. I mean, we still have somebody do our taxes because they're in Dutch, but most people, they just do their own because it's just very straightforward. If you aren't subscribed yet and you want more Amsterdam expat life or just European travel videos, go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have you part of this community, and like the video if you are enjoying it, and share if you have anybody who's thinking about moving to Amsterdam. The tipping culture, come on, United States of America, why can we not pay everybody a living wage? Like, there's all of this like pushback as to, you know, it'll hurt these businesses, but ultimately, like, if you can't pay an employee a living wage, like, is it really a business? Like, really? The tipping culture here is very different, but in the US, you have to basically pay these people's wages, whereas here it's literally gratuity. It's a way to say you did a great job. It's not expected. It's just nice to be able to give that when you feel like it was a great experience and not feel like you have to, because those people are depending on paying their phone bill with it. I got a comment on a video about tipping in the US, and so if anybody's wondering like if I still would tip properly as far as an American would in the US, absolutely. Like that's how the society is, and so I do feel obligated to do that. But when I commented 20% is about the average to tip, people were like, sorry, one person was like 10, maybe 15, never 20. So I'm really curious, what do you think the typical tipping is in the US for a night out at a restaurant? Because I've always been taught 20%. My husband used to work in the food industry. That's what he had. Of course, I knew a lot of people who did, but that was the hope, was 20%, and that's what people usually gave. So I'm really curious what you think. The quality of food here is very different. We have so many more rules when it comes to it. There's even things you can't buy here from the US that you used to be able to, because the EU regulations are so strict about it. And it's really interesting because you're kind of like, but I ate that in the US, is that not okay? But generally speaking, my understanding is everything from like the eggs to the prepackaged products, all of it, they are all just more highly regulated here than in the US. And along that line, the size of the meals. So here, when I first moved here, I kind of noticed that not takeaway, but like getting doggy bags, like having your extras taken home with you is a very weird thing, because they don't tend to give you these ridiculous sized portions, and you're not necessarily expected to eat it all, but I think the expectation is like it's a size that would be for somebody to eat in one sitting. That's not always the case, and of course you can take away things here when you're finished. I've never had an issue with that. I have seen on some of the expat threads, people were really confused because they were looked at like they had 3 heads, but I've never had a problem with that. But the portion size in the US is so that like you can literally order a meal and ask for half of it to be put in a box when you order, so you can take it home. That's just crazy to me now. But I guess I kind of got used to that when I lived there, and that was just how it was. And along those same lines, like big gulps and sodas and all of that, just kind of that's more of the culture, that sodas you have all the time. Before I even moved here, I cut back on sodas a lot. I thought they were empty calories. I didn't enjoy the drinks enough to be like, yes, I want that sugar. I know a lot of people do, and this isn't like hating on that, it's just my personal thing, that sodas is so much more of a big thing, part of everyday life in the US, and I don't feel like that's the way here. Maybe wine here. Wine is a lot cheaper here. Going back to the US and seeing that a cheap bottle of wine is 15 euros is so crazy to me. I remember the first time I went to somebody's house here, and so I went into a wine shop and I was asking for help because I didn't know what to look for. And they're like, what's your budget? And I said 15 euros. And they're like, oh, okay, great. You can get a nice bottle for that. And I was like, what? Is that real? Absolutely. So like the cheap bottles are like 4 or 5 euros. We tend to go like for a home, like 8 to 10, I think. We like wine. We like quality wine. Public transportation in Europe in general is very good. Not everywhere, but in Amsterdam, in the cities generally, it is very good. And of course it's flat here, so you can ride your bike everywhere. Whereas in the US, it's a car-centric nation, really. Everybody needs their cars, and that was a big deal, right? Like we went through this entire age where it was like the country was basically built around cars. And that's fine for a time, but then when there's so many people and the population booms and all of that, and there's no real easy way to get around without a car, then that's really hurting a lot of people that can't afford a car, are scared to drive, can't drive. Like there's a million reasons why public transportation is important, but I just love that around here, you generally just don't need a car unless you're going to specific areas, of course. But even then, we have taxis, so it's not really that big of a deal. Big cars and just the amount of cars that people have is almost borderline excessive now to me, because here you have to understand, if you see a family of 4 in the city, they're probably in a bakfiets, which is a bike with kind kind of a box in front of it, and you can put like 2 to 3 kids inside, including babies. There's car seats that go in there as well. Then you'll have one parent cycling and then one parent on another bike. But it's really fascinating to me that people here can use Bakfiets for kids, they can use it for groceries, they can use it for all sorts of things. But in the US, it's like you need an SUV with 6 seats if you have 1 child. And so it's very like confusing to me now, because I'm like, why do you need that much space? And you know, with the insurance and the gas and everything, it's just crazy that you need so much of like space in a car, when here they can do with a lot less space. But I guess it's also just about what's available, what's normal, and what you need. The amount of options at a store is just shocking. When I go back and I go to Walmart, it is crazy how big the store is, first of all, how many options of chips there are. I think that's the #1 thing when expats go back and they're like, they like to show the chip aisle or the cereal aisle, just to show just the vastness of the options that we don't have here. And that's okay, because we still have plenty of options. We are not hurting for options at all, but just the size and getting lost and the crowds and all of that is very, yeah, it's just a lot to take in when you're used to the smaller stores. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a like. And if you want to support the channel, of course you can subscribe, share the video, leave a comment down below, or even join our Patreon, where you can get exclusive videos and live streams. All right, I will see you in the next video.